Hey humans of the world, I'm Pragya Gargee and today is a Tuesday, which means it's time for True Crime Tuesday. This is a series where I'll be discussing various unsolved mysterious cases, true crime stories, serial killers, cults, paranormal activities, and basically anything spooky gooky. So if your interest is piqued by these, please consider subscribing to my channel because I'll be here for you every second Tuesday. By the way guys, this here is my first YouTube video and I am considerably excited. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode, which is of the harrowing disappearances of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. Kris Kremers, 21, and Lisanne Froon, 22, were Dutch nationals, and these both girls were really close friends. Lisanne Froon was born on 24th September 1991. She was adventurous, athletic, she kept trying out new things, and she was very outgoing. She was also rather tall, standing at 6'1", whereas Kris Kremers was considerably shorter. She was standing at 5'6". She was born on 9th August 1992, and she has been described as really creative, intelligent, and studious. Now, both of these girls were planning to go on a trip to celebrate their graduation, and they started saving up 6 months earlier. They were working at a cafe. They both were roommates, and coming from experience, if you have a cool roommate, then your life becomes quite amazing for that period of time. So they decided to go to Central America for the vacation, and this came from Kris's experience. Kris and her family had visited Peru when she was a child, and she really loved the scenery there. She had a great time, and she convinced Lisanne to go along with her to Central America. There they would learn Spanish and also do some voluntary work by teaching the local kids over there English. Lisanne agreed to it, and on March 15, 2014, they both left Amsterdam to fly from a plane to Costa Rica. From there, they flew to Bocas del Toro. It is an archipelago and it is a very famous tourist destination. So from pictures, we can see that in Bocas del Toro, these both girls were having a great time. They were partying, meeting new people, having fun with the locals, and experiencing new things. After being in Bocas del Toros for 2 weeks, they decided to go further with their travel plans and visit the town of Boquete. From there, they went to Alto Boquete, which is an even smaller region of the place. Here, they had applied to a school, and 3 days before, that is on Friday, Hans Kremers, Kris Kremers' father, had written to the school confirming their starting date, that they would be starting their volunteer work from Monday. He had dropped an email, but when these girls reached the school on Monday, they sent them away citing accommodation problems. Like they said, they did not have enough rooms for them. Both of these girls were very, very disappointed. In fact, Lisanne even texted her parents saying, "I'm really very disappointed." Well, now they had this new place to explore in an entire week's time, so they both decided to visit the Pianista Trail on Tuesday morning. The Pianista Trail is a very famous path going up till the Continental Divide, which is the summit, the Mirador summit, and it is around 8 kilometers away from Boquete. This place had crowded jungle and really beautiful waterfalls. However, the locals had warned these girls from going alone. They had asked them not to go alone, but for reasons unknown to us, these girls did not listen to the advice, and they decided to go up the hike by themselves. In fact, a local expert guide had also contacted them, saying that he would take them up to the hike, and then they could stay over at his ranch, and then they can come back the next day. But the girls said no to this offer on Tuesday, but they decided to meet this guy the very next day on Wednesday for another trip which they had planned. I think it was going to the volcano Baru, which was near to Alto Boquete. So after having lunch with the two guys they had met at their host Miriam's place, they decided to get on with the hike. They were very lightly packed. They just had one backpack between the two of them. It had one water bottle and some food, not a lot, provisions, and they themselves were dressed very lightly, as we can see from the pictures. So it's kind of clear that they were planning for a short hike. Now, the first inconsistency we notice is that the taxi driver claims that he dropped them at the trail at 1:30 p.m., but the camera timestamps show that they started by 11 a.m. In the beginning, they seemed to be doing very well, considering that they were at a higher altitude and Netherlands is notoriously flat. So you would expect them to face some challenges, but from the pictures we can see they're doing well. But in this one picture, we can see Lisanne. She's kind of frowning and she has a horizontal lip line. I guess maybe her asthma was troubling her. This next picture shows a stony path with a lot of loose stones, and had I been in this place, I would have definitely broken a foot by now. But I guess these girls were doing well, because in the next picture, which is clicked at 1 p.m, shows that they had reached the Mirador summit and they were just clicking some more pictures over here, having fun, just seeping in the moment. This next picture clicked at 1:05 p.m. It's a little bit more eerie to me because her hands are just folded behind her back, but I guess it's just a strange position. After this, we can see that Kris is crossing a narrow stream, and this next picture is the last daytime picture of these girls, like the last normal picture, because after this there is a slew of nighttime pictures which were clicked 8 days later from this day. So in this picture you can see that Kris is looking back at Lisanne, or I don't know, probably someone else whom they had just encountered or run into, and you can see that Kris's expression is very strange. She is not relaxed. She feels very tensed in this moment. They were, by the way, accompanied by a nearby restaurant owner's dog named Blue, or Azul in Spanish. Like, you know, these restaurants which are there near a tourist spot and their pet becomes very friendly with the tourist. So this dog Blue accompanied the two girls up to the Pianista Trail, but it just returned alone, and it kind of alarmed the restaurant owner, who went and informed the host Miriam. However, they just assumed that the girls were young, they must have gone partying, must have had a change of plans, and no actions were taken. On the next day, the tour guide they were supposed to meet, like, he came up to the host's house, knocked on the door, and they both realized, like the host and the tour guide, that the girls were missing. Also, in the meanwhile, back in the Netherlands, their parents had stopped receiving any texts, and both of these girls were dropping regular texts to their parents. So it was clear that the girls were now missing. Oddly enough, the tour guide asked to be taken to the girls' room. He wanted to inspect something and he was allowed to do so. After this, a local search party was formed and they went up to the trail, but they found nothing. 4 days later, and before this, the entire 4 days, no higher authorities were involved. So 4 days later, higher authorities looked into this and a big search party was found. The girls' parents had also flew in from the Netherlands and they had offered a whopping $30,000 reward to anyone who gave them some information about the girls or who found them. So you can imagine that this was a very big group of people finding, and 10 days turned into 10 weeks, but nothing of the girls were found, no clue. They had just vanished into thin air. On 9th July 2014, an indigenous Agobi woman, she found a blue backpack on the river bank of the Serpent River, which was around 8 kilometers away, that is around 14 walking hours away from where the girls were last seen. She deposited this bag to the police and she claimed that she hadn't seen that bag there before. So you would assume that the river must have washed this bag in, but that bag, it was a waterproof bag and it was completely dry when it was found. In fact, the contents inside it were in a fairly decent state as well. They were dry and fully functioning. So like this bag had endured weeks in the muddy, wet jungle, yet there was like no damage to it. The contents inside it were two neatly folded up bras, Lisanne's Samsung phone and Kris's iPhone, Lisanne's passport, Kris's medical insurance, 83 American dollars, an empty water bottle, and two pairs of cheap sunglasses. Now the mobile and the camera, they revealed some really eerie details which just convoluted the case further. From the call logs, we can see that just 2 hours later from the last normal picture was clicked, at 16:39 p.m. from Kris's iPhone, an emergency call was made to the Dutch emergency number at 112, and just around 10 minutes later another call was attempted at 112 from Lisanne's Samsung phone. But both of these calls were not connected due to poor reception. The next call was made after 14 hours on 2nd April. One of these calls at 7 a.m. in the morning managed to connect to 112 for 1 or 2 seconds, but was it disconnected due to poor reception or someone manually on purpose disconnected? We don't know. Further attempts were made to call 112, and at 13:56 p.m. an attempt was also made to call the 911 American emergency number. On the third day, another attempt to call 911 was made at 9:33 a.m. and at 4 p.m. both of these phones were switched on again to check the signals. Now, of course, these girls, if they were handling their phones, then they were trying to save their phone's battery. So most of the time it was just switched off and they were just switching it on to check if there was signal and to try and call someone. On April 5th, that is the 5th day of their disappearance, at 5 a.m. in the morning, Lisanne's Samsung was switched on, and it was switched on for the last time as its battery drained out and it was exhausted. This phone was never used again. At 13:37 on Kris's iPhone, a wrong PIN code was entered and someone was attempting to access Kris's iPhone. On the 6th day, again more attempts were made to access Kris's iPhone and PIN code was entered wrongly. In fact, from the 7th day to the 10th day, a total of 77 times the wrong PIN code was entered on Kris's iPhone. On the 11th day, suddenly at 10:51 a.m., Kris's phone was switched on. No attempts were made to call, neither to put in the PIN code, and it just stayed on for a little over an hour, and after which it was switched off, or perhaps the battery got drained. Like, was Kris and Lisanne still handling their phones at this point? Or was it a third party trying to stage an accident? We don't know. Some theories claim that by this time, when someone was trying to access Kris's iPhone, Kris must have already been dead or dying, because had she been conscious, she could have told her friend the correct PIN code. If you think this is harrowing enough, then the camera pictures will send chills down your spine. The investigators found a total of 133 photos, 90 of which were taken 7 days later. The girls were last seen on the Pianista Trail. If these pictures were taken by the girls, then it is mind-boggling to think how they survived for a week in the wild jungle with such limited resources. These photos are focused on nothing in particular, but they are so haunting, mostly because they've been taken in the dead of the night between 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. This picture was taken at 1:38 a.m. and the person who has taken this picture, it seems that they are standing on a rock and looking down at the bushes and leaves below. Some people have claimed that the photo shows the contours of a body down below, but it has become clear that it is just the reflection of the flashlight on a plant or a leaf. The second photo, it shows a twig, and on it some gum wrapper or red plastic is stuck. So when I was first reading this case, I thought that, these pictures are very haphazard and they're not focusing and they do not have an intent. But pictures like these, they show that the person who's taking this picture, they have a particular intent to capture something. The third and the most harrowing picture is this one, which shows the back of Kris's head, which looks just so clean and dry, like her hair is utterly clean. These girls, they were surviving for 7 days, probably sleeping on the jungle floor, getting wet in the rain. You expect some dirt to be caught in the hair, but it just looks so squeaky clean and dry. And finally, there is the fifth photo, where the flash, it lights up pieces of supposedly toilet paper, a reflective object like a mirror, a strap, all of these placed on a rock. Now, some people have speculated that the girls, they used flashlight to guide their way ahead. But if you're there like in a very dark room and someone clicks a picture and flashes a light, then you would actually be blinded for a moment or two, because your eyes are accustomed to the darkness. If you were moving ahead and using the flashlight to light up your way, then you would take pictures of different locations, right? But these pictures are of the same location, just from different angles. If these girls were using the flashlight to give some sort of SOS signal in the night sky, then the first question which comes to my mind is, why wait for the 7 days? What were these girls doing in the 7 days? What had happened to them? I have no clue. There are more shots of just trees in the darkness, raindrops falling, cliffs overhanging, and basically nothing very much in particular. There is also the possibility that by day 8 you start hallucinating and you start seeing things which are not actually there. If we assume that the girls were running away from some sort of animal or trying to scare it away using the flash, then that animal, it would have been captured in these pictures which were clicked in a quick succession. And it's not very difficult to imagine that, you have been in the jungle for such a long time, you are parched, you are starved. Even the sound of a small twig or any unexpected noise would throw you into a full-blown panic mode. In such a disoriented situation, even the flash of a camera could provide you some moral support. Now it was time for the police to go back to this place in the pictures and investigate. On June 19, 2014, they formed a team and they included the indigenous people and even the expert local guide. And this very guide, he found some bone remains and a pair of shorts neatly folded kept on the river bank of the river Serpent. Later, Lisanne's shoe was also found with the foot still intact in it, and it was cut cleanly at the ankle. The forensics, they stated that there was no sign of any blood, and even when they looked through the microscope, they could not find any scratches or abrasions. If they were mauled by an animal, then you would expect some scratches, but none of that was found on the bone. It was just a very clean cut. At least 33 widely scattered bones were found on the river bank. Maybe if there was a killer, he wanted to just scatter the bones so far away that no one would be able to find enough of either of the girls. One half of a pelvic bone was also found, which was later confirmed to be of Kris. A ball of skin or tissue was also found, and it matched later with Lisanne's DNA, and it showed a normal state of decomposition, which was in stark contrast with Kris's bones, which were just bleached, and they even had signs of phosphorus in it. Another really weird and strange detail in this case is the missing 509 picture. So this Canon camera, it indexed the pictures the girls took and it sequenced them. So the last daytime picture, it is sequence number 508, and the first nighttime picture taken 7 days later on April 8th, is sequenced as 5010, and conveniently the only picture which sits between these two time frames is the 509 picture, which is missing. And it's just like not missing, it has been totally wiped from the memory card, and that can only be possible if you connect your camera to a PC and totally wipe out all the traces of that picture. I think that maybe in this picture, they captured maybe a third party or something very incriminating, and that is why this picture has not been found yet. Another thing to note is that local guide who went to the girls to investigate on 2nd April, he could have had access to the phone cables and wires of the girls and, I don't know, fidgeted around maybe. Although, of course, this is just an opinion. Or maybe the Panamanian authorities, they just pushed the accident supposition so that the tourism gig does not get affected, and they created this big cover-up. This entire case, it just leaves us with so many questions and no satisfactory answers. That tour guide, who was one of the last people to see these two girls, he was also the first to find the bone remains. And he is also alleged to have behaved inappropriately with the female tourists, and he used to get very friendly with them and used to be very biased towards these female visitors. He has even been alleged to having touched them inappropriately. But then again, we can't pin it all down on him, because the Froon family, they actually called him a very close friend, because he had helped a lot during the search and he put in a lot of efforts. You wonder why the girls didn't drop a text if the calls were not getting connected, why they didn't call the host family if the emergency numbers were not working, why didn't they call their own family, they didn't record any voice note, any video, nothing. Maybe they were saving the battery, but I don't know, a text could have been possible.
Hey there, I'm Pragya from the future, and while editing, I noticed that the audio of this video has just gone somewhere. So basically what I'm saying over here is that there is also the information of few bones of at least 3 other humans being found. No idea who they were, but local natives are sometimes said to fall from these unreliable monkey bridges and die. There are also at least 20 missing persons declared in the same area. So why didn't the girls turn back on reaching the summit and instead decided to cross the continental divide and traverse in difficult terrain when they had packed so lightly? Who erased data from Lisanne Froon's camera and why? Why was there bleach on Kris's bone? Why were the remains found so far from the summit of the Pianista Trail and scattered around? How come the electronics inside the backpack, said to have been floating in Wild River for weeks, had no water damage and was in full working condition? There are so many tragic and frightening aspects to the story. The nighttime pictures are so disturbing, and just the thought of what these girls must have gone through in their last days is harrowing. Kris's last line in her diary before heading out on their hike was, "Go with the Panamanian flow." And to think of the tragedy which occurred breaks my heart.
Take care of yourself. If you have any other suggestions or cases for me to cover, do let me know in the comment section below. Have a good day. Bye bye.